What are cryptids? A zoological cryptid is an animal or plant whose existence has been suggested but has not been discovered or documented by the scientific community. Many of these cryptids are one-of-a-kind animals, as there are only one exact member of these creatures known. Here are 10 cryptids that turned out to be real. Number 10. Xiphus. A xiphus is a large water creature that resembles the spawn of a dolphin mixed with a manatee. According to the xiphus myth, this creature had the head of an owl and was just called the water owl. The reason it grew to mythical status was that its sharp beak was said to puncture hulls of ships. In any case, we now know the animal as the carver's beaked whale. Number 9. The Hun Kiem turtle. As the Loch Ness Monster is specific to one body of water, so is this turtle. Its home in Vietnam, being native to Han Kiem Lake, which means translated to Sword Lake. Unlike the last cryptid, it didn't puncture the hulls of ships, but maybe it did something a bit worse. It had supposedly pulled the magic sword from the Emperor Lai Lao, who was boating. Well, in short, as was with the case with the Loch Ness Monster, people tried to find the turtle to no avail, yet they did find it by videotaping the shell-bearing chap in 1998. Plenty of photos of the turtle now exist. And it turns out that the animal might not have been quite as fictitious as we thought. It is quite a creepy-looking creature, though. Number 8. The devil bird. This bird, aka the Yoma, only known by his long cries. It developed into a myth as a way to explain the disturbing loud cries in the region. People who apparently equate the devil with womanlyhood decided to call this bird a devil bird to describe and explain his long, haunting cries. These cries were seen as omens of death. The cry was described as resembling the sound of a young woman being strangled. This bird was featured on the 80s TV show Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. And then the sightings began. And then scientists finally was able to nail down the type of owl that made this cry. It became a new species, the spotted belly owl. Number 7. Okapi. It would be great to know a bit more about this myth. However, the people who started spreading the story of the creature didn't want it to come across as true. I mean, who would come up with the myth of a story that's basically shaped like a horse, but with ears like a giraffe, and his long neck, and zebra stripes on his legs? It is often described as basically the African unicorn. Enter Sir Harry Johnston, a colonial advisor, who, as those chaps often did, liked to collect animals, and you bet he wanted a piece of the African unicorn. And a piece is exactly what he got. He got 2 skulls and a skin and sent them to London. Scientists were able to nail down the animal, figure out that it was an animal as a close relative of the giraffe. Number 6. Kangaroos. You would never doubt the existence of kangaroos, right? However, a lot of people did. When British explorers went to Australia and returned with tales of giant hopping machines with long tails, not to mention a little pouch for babies, they were of course greeted with serious skepticism. In 1770, someone conveyed a dead body of a kangaroo that dispelled the myth that they were myths. What's interesting is that some people talk about kangaroos existing in North America. People generally say such animals sighted must have escaped from zoos, and in some cases write the whole thing off as hallucinations. Number 5, sea serpents. A lot of people fear snakes, and a lot of people fear big creatures that can hoist their heads out of the water and take a chunk of you. As you can see, the sea serpent is both of these things, particularly fearsome and creepy. Now, sailors and myths go hand in hand, so when people from this trade came along with stories of huge swimming serpents who were longer than some ships, not many people believed, but at one point people started seeing these creatures and they were proven to be real. They're really not as creepy or scary as they ought to be. Once people found out what they really were fish. In 2013, after many sightings had already been reported, a young marine biologist made a sighting, and it took 15 people to drag the 18-foot monster ashore. What's beautiful about the oarfish or sea serpent is that they remain rare and thus still have that mystique and aura around them. Number 4, the bonzaroo. This creature probably couldn't or wouldn't kill a human. It doesn't have scales or strong jaws or razor-sharp teeth. So that's no fun, right? But we will include it anyway, since it has some interesting mythology around it. It comes from Papua New Guinea, which has several spirit animals in its culture. It is an upright shaped animal. Bipedal stance is the way it walks. It is often described as a mini furry type person, yet it is sometimes compared to a kangaroo. One more accurate depiction is its nickname, the tree kangaroo. The picture of the animal landed in the hands of an Australian scientist in the 90s. He then conducted a field survey and established it as a distinct species. It is real. Very real. Number 3, the Komodo dragon. For centuries, people have speculated about giant land lizards of various kinds. Obviously, the classic dragon, huge, green, fire-breathing, and so on. But people finally concluded that all these stories of huge land-dwelling lizards were all just the stuff of fairy tales. So when people finally visited Indonesia, they came back with tales of land crocodiles and very long lizards. But it wasn't until 1926 that some sort of big lizard was verified as an actual creature. An expedition in conjunction with the American Museum of Natural History brought back several Komodos, including 2 living species. It was then found that these beasts could grow up to 10 foot long. That, combined with their jaws and fangs, made them quite fearsome indeed. Number 2, giant squid. The giant squid has a tremendous place in mythology and in popular fears and imagination. The fear of this creature literally smothering a boat or submarine. The Kraken of Norse mythology is a good example of the fabled creature, but of some of the stories, and in fact they appear in many different cultures. The squid was categorized as unreal until the 1870s, where tentacles of enormous squid began washing ashore. The examination of these parts, as well as the entire body, established that indeed giant squids did exist. Thought to be exceedingly rare, though recognized that they only lived in deep, very deep water. However, specimens have been collected over the years, some over 30 feet in length. Number 1, mountain gorilla. If you tell people that you've seen a gorilla or an ape, no problem. But if you say that you've seen an ape man, they'd probably look at you strange. Various tribes in Africa have talked about large animals similar to humans in many ways, but most were just thought to be another story. Something that was like a man, but different. In fact, some stories tell of them eating humans, which did not help the credibility of said stories. Well, the gorilla, commonly known now, has become part of mankind's stock of knowledge. In the early 20th century, a German soldier named Robert van Buren shot one in Rwanda. The world had finally found out that they had indeed a hairy, humanoid-like creature that was somewhat human-like and definitely in the same family tree as humans. What's fascinating is that the existence of all these creatures used to be doubted and even ridiculed. The people who believed in them were ridiculed for believing in fairy tales. There's something to be said for creatures whose existence is doubted and who comes through with proof of realness. What is imagined and fascinated can be a lot more real than you think. What creatures said to be mythical today will be proven in the future.